Hey folks, David Stewart here. Let's talk about the cosmology. The cosmology of the movie Coco, the Pixar movie. Before I get into that. Oh, crap, it's upside down. King Leper. It's out July 24th. You can pre-order the ebook, buy the physicals. I call this George R. R. Martin meets Poul Anderson. It's really more in the classic fantasy, but there's some good political intrigue and lots of action, and some adventures in the Feyland. Check it out. You'll like it. Beautiful cover art by Jesse White there. Now, the cosmology of Coco. What reminded me of this was a tweet from the Kirsova account. That is a quarterly, I think, a short fiction magazine. If you're interested in short fiction, you need to be buying Kirsova and reading what other short fiction authors are doing. It's a very underread form. And I like reading short fiction, and I hope you will take it up if you haven't started reading short fiction. Anyway, the cosmology of Coco. I'm just going to read this tweet and just tell you what I think about this, because I've had this feeling many times and had this discussion, and people, it didn't compute with people. I know I'm the odd one out on this. My girlfriend loves it, but to me, it felt gross and manipulative to the point of evil. The cosmology is one of ultimate hopelessness, where ancestor worship temporarily prolongs a materialistic afterlife, but obliteration of the soul is inevitable. So, if you've ever watched Disney's Coco, the little boy goes across into the land of the dead, where everybody's having a big skeleton party and enjoying themselves in the afterlife, until their family on this side stops venerating them and remembering them, till they're forgotten, and then they fade away from the skeleton land. So they become nothing. And there's one skeleton who's like sick and dying and just wants one more this or that. And then he just fades away. And it's like, where's he going? I don't know, to the next place. There's no belief in an ultimate afterlife. So it's either this is a temporary afterlife and then your soul is obliterated, or no one has any kind of actual cosmology beyond that. I find that it's very nihilistic. And when I bring that up to people, they're kind of shocked, and they recognize that that's really what the movie is communicating. And I think the result of this, by the way, is sort of running all the way to the end post with some really basic folk beliefs of like Mexican culture, like folk Catholicism, without really thinking deeper about it and trying to avoid any kind of actual religious thing. Like, you have a piece of a folk religion and not anything else with that. So it's like, yes, our dead ancestors benefit from our veneration and our ancestor worship, until we forget who they are, because that inevitably happens as time goes down. You know, I never met my great grandfather on my father's side. I have some things of his, but I didn't really know him. And eventually my son will forget who he was, other than he'll be like, know that some ancestor had a couple of objects that I still have sitting around of his. And my father knew his grandfather. My uncles and aunts knew their grandpa, and they could talk about him, but they often don't. So who he is or who he was is very gray for me, and it's going to be pretty much non-existent for my son. So that's the natural progression of things. And in Coco, if that happens, and so you have one kind of senile woman who remembers her dad, and remembers him fondly and kind of knows the truth about him. When she forgets him because of her senility, he fades away and disappears. At the same time, there's really like a dark element to the cosmology, because you have this famous singer who stole all his songs from the boy's, I guess, dead, it was his dead great grandfather, whatever it was, stole all his songs. And of course he's enjoying the materialistic, beautiful afterlife, where everybody remembers him in the real world because he was a famous singer, and there's videos and albums of him. And so they're still remembering him because he screwed everybody over in the real life. So he got his reward in the afterlife, and that reward in the afterlife pretty much will just never get taken away, because you'd have to take away the veneration in the real life. So he got all the benefits of being evil and got zero kind of cosmic punishment for it. Compare this to the way that we see the dead in classical, even in classical literature. We'll step outside of like the Christian cosmology and look at, say, the Greeks. There's a point in, I think it's the Odyssey, Odysseus sees Achilles in Hades, and Achilles says something to the effect of like, it would have been better if I was just like a fisherman. I don't remember what the exact words were. Maybe you are recalling them exactly. But Achilles is not enjoying the afterlife. Rather, the afterlife is a place, it's an echo of the real life. And the glory of the real life is mostly forgotten and doesn't benefit you in the afterlife. So it's a very kind of dark look at the way our life is meant to be lived here in the now. And that's why Odysseus is trying to get home too, is because it's real. It's his life in the real world, and it matters. It matters because it's real in this world, not because he's going to be given some kind of benefit in the afterlife, right? That's rare. It's rare that anyone gets to join the gods. So in that cosmology, which is kind of dark with something with death, you still have an immortal soul. Whereas with Coco, you don't have an immortal soul. Your soul is mortal, and its mortality, its life, is dependent upon how much your actions in the current world echoed in that, or in the real world echoed in the living world, right? That's why the singer gets all the benefits. And so it's actually very dark to me. And like I said, very, very nihilistic. When I bring it up, people don't really like it because they like the message of family and this kind of stuff, and they're not really thinking about all the ultimate messages and implications of what's going on in the Coco movie. And I just wanted to share that because it's a deeply messed up cosmology. You get a temporary reprieve from oblivion as a skeleton in the land of the dead, which is an endless party of pleasures of a certain kind, not of another kind, right? And then you disappear forever. That's really, I don't know, that's very, very dark. And again, I think it's born out of folk Catholicism, which is kind of like a fascinating topic for me that I'm always trying to find more sources or more people who have written about it. But the folk beliefs and how they get kind of incorporated into folk practices and kind of work alongside Christianized beliefs in the New World, for example, and persist past the point of overall Christianization to where they've been kind of forgotten or severed from maybe their pagan origins or their folk origins to be just a cultural practice that they're clearly religious, right? Going and like bringing food out for the dead at the graveyard is a religious practice. We look at it as, we may just kind of mute that and say it's cultural, but it is a religious practice. And the religious practice of it is disconnected and in opposition to many basic Christian teachings. Another example would be like burying an effigy of a saint like Saint Joseph in order to get them to do something, the denigration of the saints, like treating it like a little idol that affects the saint somehow if you bury it in dirt. Kind of hoping to make the saint do a thing. Like, where does this practice originate? I'm always fascinated with that sort of thing, and I think Coco is probably a good example of that. Overall, though, I think people tend to take the good messages from movies like that and forget about the bad messages. They like the message of family. They like the message of remembering your ancestors, remembering your roots, remembering where you came from. There's a strong conflict of justice there, right? When there's injustice done, we want to see the injustice fixed, and for the most part it's fixed in the movie. But what we don't think about is the setting and how that affects the conflict. It's really important for the people who are alive to remember this guy, because when they stop remembering him, he will die. His soul will be obliterated. It's a really important part of the conflict. The movie, all of the movie's stakes are built around the fact that the soul isn't immortal, that the soul is mortal and will disappear once people have forgotten you. And that's why no one wants to disappear. If they just went to heaven afterwards, then there'd really be no compulsion to try to escape from, or there'd be no desire to avoid escaping from the purgatory that is the land of the dead. But that's not how they view it. They are gone once they are stopped, once they're no longer worshipped by their ancestors, or once they're no longer venerated, let's say, by their ancestors. Interesting thing to think about. I would love to have your thoughts on it. Don't forget, King Leper is out, upside down again, out on July 24th. Have a great one. And don't forget to buy Kirsova, especially if you want to actually read anything that's going on with short fiction. I know people want to write short fiction. If you want to write short fiction, you need to be reading it. That's the big things. People are like, well, I've been told to write short stories. You got to read them too, okay? So I'm telling you where to read them. Kursova Magazine. Have a great one, and I'll see you all next day. Next time. Next day, next time.